Majority of the gastric bypass still consider a restrictive operation. I made your stomach smaller, 1/5 the size. So common sense tells me I'm going to eat 1/5 as much as I normally did, and I'm feeling fuller sooner, faster. And so digestion continues. The reason why the gastric bypass is partly malabsorptive is because that length of small intestine, the 100 centimeters I took away, is no longer used for absorption, so that's a malabsorptive. The side effects of gastric bypass is you have to be able to supplement vitamins daily. The side effect is part of the stomach that's no longer seeing food anymore. The part that's got disconnected has certain important hormones or enzymes that help you absorb certain nutrients, such as iron, folate, B12, vitamin D, and calcium. And since food no longer goes to that part of the stomach, or that part of the stomach don't see food, they're obligated not to make those hormones or enzymes. So patients can develop imbalances of certain vitamins, and long-term deficiency can lead to long-term permanent damage. Vitamin B12, folate, calcium, and iron. You can get anemia. There's a lot of side effects. So I always encourage patients, you have to be willing to supplement daily. If not, gastric bypass today is not considered the operation for you. And other side effect is a lot of patients who have the gastric bypass are sort of forced in one area of how and what type of foods they can consume, because a lot of food groups may not agree with the patient. They develop what we call the dumping syndrome. They don't have the enzymes to digest carbohydrates, candies, cookies, sugars, ice cream, and high in fats. KFC, drumsticks, delicious, but all that oil, it can give them a violent reaction. And sometimes patients say, well, that's the kind of reaction I need to really slap me in the hand saying I cannot have that food. But sometimes people cannot handle the side effects. And so I always, bring to the patient's attention that there are side effects with the gastric bypass. And based on the bypass side effects, not being able to absorb certain stuff, certain nutrients, and bypass is notorious early on for hair loss. But over time, when patients have the gastric bypass, they usually plateau out and their hair loss is not as significant because we have made some rearrangements in their physiology. So physiologically and metabolically, their bodies have changed. So one of the signs of that is hair loss. You don't see it often in gastric bands or the sleeve because those are more considered natural procedures because you absorb everything that you eat. So there are some side effects of gastric bypass. So as long as the patient understands that if they choose a bypass, this is what is to be expected, and they can live with it and be happy with it, it's a great operation.